Hello and welcome to Astrology with Jo. Thank you so much for being here, listening to my astrology forecast. Your presence and support means so much to me, and I never take it for granted. It fuels my passion, my work, and my craft. So this is all for you. So today we're speaking about the current energies of Libra season 2025, and we're covering about the 23rd of September to the 7th of October. Now, Libra season comes with the equinox, and in the southern hemisphere at this time of year, we have, of course, the spring equinox. This is also known as Ostara in the pagan calendar year. This occurs on the day that the sun enters the tropical zodiac sign of Libra. This year it's occurring on the 23rd of September at 4:19 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. This is a balancing point when the day and the night are of equal length. And then we have this tipping point when the days start to grow gradually longer than the nights for us in the Southern Hemisphere. So this is a balancing point, and especially in Libra season, the sign of the scales, I like to think of it as a way of tipping the scales in whichever way you need to favor. And this can be to return to balance and harmony and homeostasis, alignment, peace, or it can just be the readjustment that you need to tip into whichever trajectory that you're leaning towards. Regardless, this is a time of reflection, a time of balance, a time for consideration and deliberation of next steps. This does occur in spring for us, the Libra equinox. And what we can do at these seasonal points is use this point in time to project into the rest of the season. And usually what unfolds at an equinox and solstice really colors what unfolds over the following 3-month period. So this springtime then for us is going to be colored by this strong solar eclipse in Virgo that we just had, which was a day before the sun entered Libra on the 22nd of September. Look back to see what was happening then for you. This is a massive new beginning, which is fitting for the season of spring, which is all about new growth and emergence. This new moon was very important for what you are desiring to initiate in your life in terms of bringing any bigger life themes, ideas, goals onto Earth, because Virgo is an Earth sign, in very usable, very interactable ways, because the sun and moon are touching all of the outer planets at that solar eclipse. So these broader, bigger, more intense life evolutions that are ongoing for you are really brought down onto Earth. I did not make a podcast video for that new moon solar eclipse, as I had some new moon solar eclipse themes coming up. It's important to note, though, that lunation does filter into Libra season, as well as the following 3 months until the solstice in December, because it did occur right on the doorstep of this Libra solstice. So let's get right into the transits. I'm going to start off with the sun entering the sign of Libra and triggering all of those outer planets again. Coming off that solar eclipse, which was very powerful, a very significant launch point, we've got this outer planet involvement with this ingress occurring, continuing on from that solar eclipse. So this is a beginning, this is a realignment. And remember that the outer planets are all sitting on the thresholds of their sign. So whenever a planet or point does shift, these outer planets are going to be switched on. So this sun was opposing Saturn retrograde in Pisces at the time of that new moon solar eclipse, just before it entered into Libra. So this means that this solstice, this season, this next 3 months, it's kind of colored that new beginning or fresh start with perhaps some sort of a restriction, limitation, or rejig of the rules and boundaries. So it's requiring you to really consider how sustainable and workable and long-term what you're working towards really is. And then as the sun shifted into Libra, we've got an immediate conjunction to the supergalactic center at 1 to 2 degrees of Libra. And it falls also into a grand air trine with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius and the Uranus-Sedna conjunction in Gemini. We've also got a direct opposition to Neptune retrograde in Aries at 0 degrees. So all of these big players are activated at this equinox, as well as the new moon solar eclipse. And that is what's going to be propelling us into the next quarter. So breaking this down, what is highlighted with the sun is this yawning need for justice and harmony, peace and equality at this point, at the beginning of this decan of Libra, because this is where the supergalactic center resides. And this yawning need for justice and harmony, etc., could be a general overall need in your life, or this could be in more specific areas, depending on where your Libra house resides in your natal chart. So most likely this is to do with relationships, because that's what the supergalactic center in Libra does tend to bring up for us. This conjunction doesn't last very long, but the themes linger on as the sun stays in orb of that ongoing grand air trine that we have with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Sedna in Gemini. So this is a flowing of ideas, a flowing of ideals, new ways of thinking, new mentality, more evolved cerebral processing, higher levels of communication and of interaction. Now, with Pluto involved, of course, this means an empowerment process. And it also means that something does have to end, to shed, or to die in order for that power to be embodied, in order for you to feel your power, Pluto, freely in Aquarius. Now, with Uranus, this is the shake-up, the wake-up, the irrefutable urge to change. And of course, working with Sedna, this is around the transmutation and evolvement of your connections, of your mentality. So these are big themes, big energies, big shifts that I've covered over and over and over again, but they are flowing together here to help you, even if it does feel quite mammoth, and they're launching you into this next couple of month period. Now, it could, on the flip side, feel quite easy to let your mind run away with you, to remain too much in your head. The ruler of these Libra points is Venus, who is currently traveling through very helpful, practical Virgo, who says that the way through this cyclone of progression and evolution is now to use those mental processes to discern, analyze, discriminate, especially when it comes to your personal boundaries with others and to how your values and self-worth may be shifting and changing during these times. It's important to remain aware of how you are changing on these levels and maybe not to be too influenced by others or externalities and trends, etc., when it comes to choices around how you will be changing and transforming into the future. Now, remember, as I spoke about in my last forecast, Venus in Virgo is in mutual reception with her own ruler, Mercury, which is in her sign of rulership, Libra. So this flow of ideas and discernment is overall a very supportive one, and it's a collaboration, whether that's within yourself or with others. Now, let's quickly touch on this Mars in Scorpio. I talked about this, a major aspect that we have occurring with the Mars squaring Pluto on the 24th of September. I've already spoken about that in my Virgo season forecast because that's when Mars entered Scorpio. He perfects this square on the 24th of September, and I'd give this a few days on either side as well because this is a very powerful aspect. Mars is currently sitting in a yod with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and the Uranus-Sedna conjunction at the base. All of these outer planets are alive with him in Scorpio there. So this Mars is already feeling the pressures. You may already be feeling the pressure that these outer planets are exerting when it comes to these massive endings and releasings that we're moving through here, okay, to be able to begin and embody what you want to do to be moving forward. This can be felt as a tension around not feeling able to move ahead. This is the tension and frustration of knowing how powerful you are in Scorpio and knowing also that maybe you aren't yet in a position to use that power in some way, in some capacity. The strength here is that Scorpio can wait. Scorpio has the ability to strike when and if it needs, and only then. That means that there has to be an acute sense of what is going on around you. What do you need to do to be in your power? How is that power and assertion best channeled at this time? The quincunx discomfort may mean that you aren't comfortable holding in your sting, holding in your potency, or holding in your exertion. And on the flip side, maybe you aren't comfortable yet embodying that sense of power in some way. There's Definitely a volcano brewing here either way. The Mars-Pluto square can really bring things to a clashing head. There's some pent-up energy and steam that needs to release, and it's important to stay mindful, which that Grand Air trine and that Libra sun can really help us with, to stay mindful of how, where, and why you may be feeling triggered to lash out. And there's a difficulty with Mars-Pluto aspects of not being in control of every tiny little thing. So there are some things that we can control in life, some things which unfortunately they're just out of our hands, in the hands of the weather, of the gods, of chance and mischance, as well as bodies, organizations, rules, and legislations that you just don't have any sway over. There may be an urge to fight back against something that you feel is oppressing you. There could be anger and violence lurking beneath the surface here. Tempers may flare. There could be some undoings of any ego-based power systems in your life, whether that's your own ego systems or others. There's a very strong underbelly aspect here with Scorpio and with Pluto. So some very real fears and shadows could be coming up for you. And the trick here is to remain in touch with your own inner drive, your own inner power, and to know the difference between that and the constructs that your ego could be putting in place to keep you feeling secure and in control. Next up, we've got a little bit of an empty void period from the 24th of September until about the 1st of October. But before we launch past that, we've got an interesting interaction here with asteroid Astraea triggering the nodal axis. Now she's coming through to square the north and south node, which indicates some kind of realignment, readjustment, reanalysis. There's a tension around maybe your sense of hopeful aspiration in terms of making or returning to some kind of personal dream or paradise or quote unquote golden age, because that's what Astraea can signify, especially in Sagittarius. There could be a little deflation of the Sagittarius instinct to be positive at all costs, to look at the bright side, to refuse to see the shadows or the negativity, even in a sense, some kind of spiritual bypassing lessons here. You know, you could have issues or problems that actually need addressing, but you're trying to make them disappear through positive thinking. I'm one of the guilty ones when it comes to this. So this T-square to the nodes may bring you back to something that you perhaps have glossed over in the past, something you need to explore, Astraea's in Sagittarius, and to find the meaning of, to really be able to release with the South node and then progress with the North node. And this could be a work thing that you're moving through with Virgo, or a health thing. And it could very well tie into what your broader dreams are in terms of following what is calling to you with the North Node in Pisces, especially in realigning your personal philosophies and belief systems and how they are coloring the path ahead and how you are viewing the path already traveled. We then have this space of about 5 to 6 days between the 25th of September and the 1st of October, 24th, 25th of September to the 1st of October, when nothing really happens in the skies. We haven't really had this lack of aspects for a while now, and this can usually paradoxically be the time when things actually happen. Things come out, things start moving, things get stymied or blocked, things accidentally fall into place. Because it's a very void-ish receptive space, it makes that space for things to unfurl. If any of these previous transits have been working with your chart personally, this is usually the time that things can start to unfold, or you can start to see them more clearly. So I'm just going to skip ahead for a moment or two to carry on from that Astraea nodal activation. On the 4th of October, we have Venus in Virgo coming through to conjunct the South node, okay, opposing the North node in Pisces. So these nodes are first activated by Astraea on the 24th of September, and then nearly 10 days later, they are reactivated by Venus. Astraea is still in orb here. So yes, this is a T-square. Our good old friend, the T-square, is back. So now, with Venus, there's something to address with your self-worth and abundance that needs a definite draining and cleansing. Venus in Virgo is showing you your boundaries and your self-respect, and passing this South node, she's showing you what needs to be ended around how you value yourself or how you don't value yourself. So this is certainly around money and finances as well, because that lack or or abundance mindset is directly affecting your finances, security, and your money. With the opposition to the North Node in unconditionally loving Pisces, it's almost like any of those Virgo confines and conditions that you put on yourself and within your relationships need to be dissolved into something that aligns more fully with love, your own love, and the love that formulates that collective unity consciousness and your spirituality, whatever that means for you. Perhaps where you are being shown where yours or others' boundaries have been too strict, where the analytical processes have been going over the top in terms of hypercriticality regarding yourself or others. Now, it's important to maintain your integrity here, and also on the flip side, important to be mindful of the boundaries of others and how maybe these boundaries have been blurred or skewed in some way. This could also be around any daily habits and patterns that are potentially inhibiting your abundance or your healthy relationships with self and others. So it's a good time to look at what things or habits in your life that you know aren't healthy for you that you can now let go of or release to enable a more secure foundation financially and also more functional relationships. Now, just because Venus is on the South Node doesn't mean your relationship is going to end. In fact, it could very well portend the exact opposite, counterintuitive as that sounds. So this could herald the ending of a phase within a relationship, ending an old chapter with the South Node to begin a new chapter, a new level of connection with that North Node opposition. Now, we will also have asteroid Pallas stationing direct in Aquarius on this same day on the 4th of October. So the same day as this Venus South Node conjunction. So Pallas is the weaver of threads, the pattern maker, the pattern breaker. She's the goddess of wisdom and war, peace, and cold tact. In Aquarius, she's been helping us unpick any mental habits and patterns, any mental complexes which need untangling or freeing. This is all about being able to think differently and being able to use your creative mind in different and probably less conventional ways. Now stationing direct, you may be feeling a sense of something clicking together, even some kind of a light bulb moment. Given that this is the day that Venus, goddess of love and abundance, makes her connection to the nodal axis, this release or letting go of what no longer serves your security and finance, sense of love and worth, and anything in relationships. This release is likely to be in tandem with some kind of patterning with Pallas coming to an end with that South Node activation. We could have more clarity now, more mindfulness, a more objective and liberated way of viewing things. Now, Pallas has been in Aquarius for a while, since February this year, and she's had a tight run-in with Pluto in this retrograde journey, who has been demanding a kind of empowerment and ending when it comes to your patterns, your creative mind, your intellectual processing, and your right to peace. So this station is sort of a beginning of the end. Now, she's not going to exit Aquarius until January next year, so there's still some loose ends to tie up, but the main untangling process probably has already begun, perhaps has even already begun to finalize and even ease. So let's rewind back a little for some more Sagittarius energy. After our void space opens up on the 1st of October, we've got asteroid Juno entering Sagittarius. If you remember, before her retrograde in Scorpio, she had just entered Sagittarius in February this year and nearly reached 2 degrees before turning back for her retrograde. So she's had a long time in Scorpio with asteroid Vesta, and now she's following Vesta's footsteps into the blazing light of Sagittarius. So Juno, Queen of Heaven, shows us our agreements, contracts. She's known as the dreaded marriage asteroid, which I don't particularly favor, but she does show us sacred commitments and relationships. And what she can also show is how sovereignty tangos with commitment in your life. In myth, she was not honored by her husband, and in retaliation, she embodied the toxic feminine in an attempt to restore her sense of power and honor and sovereignty. So what Juno teaches is how we engage with ourselves and with others to maintain our sense of personal power, honor, and sovereignty. In Scorpio, this was a deep purging of toxic habits, toxic relationships, to engage in authentic, passionate, and empowering agreements. Now in Sagittarius, this will be a journey of expansion, broadening the horizon and the options when it comes to your contracts and relationships. And this will be about also the underlying ideals, ideologies, and belief systems which underlie how you relate and engage with others. There's a strong potential to be exploring these belief systems. This is also a very freeing placement after the stiflingness of Scorpio. And it's where obligations and commitments perhaps come second to that sense of free-spirited adventure and search for higher meaning and truth, your higher aspirations, both physical and metaphysical exploration that accompanies this search for sovereignty and self-honor. Now we have, as Juno enters Sagittarius, before she does, she trined Saturn retrograde in Pisces, which is not on the screen. This happened on the 25th of September. Then as she ticks into Sagittarius, she will trine Neptune retrograde on the 3rd. We've got an opposition to the Uranus and a conjunction on the 5th. So this ingress is affecting all of these outer planets. You probably sound like a broken record. Let's call this period of time here. Let's call it from about the 29th-ish of September to maybe the 6th of October. And this is a shifting of relational boundaries, a shifting of terms, a shifting of powers. This is a liberation of these things, especially with Uranus, the freedom fighter, opposing Juno there, which is exact on the 5th of October. There's a sudden reawakening or a sudden awakening after this retrograde of what you're really capable of and how many options you actually have. And it's an awakening to how commitments will either align or don't align with where you want your power and sovereignty to take you. Sagittarius wants to go places. This could create or coincide with a shock or revelation, whether internally or externally. And it's probably going to either come from or trigger or both a very deep place within you, because we've also got Sedna involved here. So there's certainly going to be changes with Uranus to commitments and relationships, agreements and contracts. With the trine to Saturn before entering Sag, Juno is again faced with the question of what are you really willing to commit to? How much work are you willing to put into it? What are you now ready to engage with for the long term? When she enters Sagittarius, there may not be many answers to this. There may not be much that Juno actually wants to commit to, and that's okay, because we've got this Neptune in Aries trine, adding to that sense of higher love for self, because Aries is the self, and this is about self-acceptance and understanding, as well as incorporating this sense of a higher consciousness into your relationships and your agreements. So while all of that is happening, we will also be having a Mercury transit beginning on the 2nd of October. We've got Mercury squaring Jupiter in Cancer. Then he will go on to oppose the Chiron-Eris conjunction on the 4th of October. So these few days are likely to be a bit prickly. The square from Mercury in Libra to Jupiter in Cancer is almost like an attempt to smooth over with Libra some form of emotional communication or emotional expression and expansion. This may be a hiccup in the articulation of something emotional. Jupiter in Cancer represents big emotions, and Mercury in Libra wants everyone to cooperate and act peacefully in the way that they're interacting. So sometimes the issue here is that sometimes you just can't hide your emotions, and maybe something is blown out of proportion on this day, something that isn't actually as big a deal but comes across as something massive, or maybe something said or communicated is received in a manner that wasn't intended and is then blown out of proportion. There's always something to be learnt here, though, with both Mercury and Jupiter, and also Chiron coming in as the teacher. Maybe this is about finding the balance between both keeping the peace and expressing how you feel. Maybe how you feel doesn't align with and feels more important than just keeping the peace. And that's where this friction is coming from. So then when Mercury opposes Chiron and Eris retrograde in Aries 2 days later on the 4th of October, things get even more heated. Hurtful words are the first thing that comes to mind with a Mercury-Chiron opposition. So things that you or others may feel highly sensitive or sore about could be touched on around this time. Words that impact your sense of self-confidence may be coming through. Maybe something objective and impartial is said or heard, and it triggers you in some strong way. I mean, Eris in Aries there as well is helping all of the ouchy buttons to be pushed. So expect words, thoughts, or communications on this day to come through in ways which may not land very nicely for you. It's a great idea to be mindful with Mercury of all words, thoughts, and communications around this time, just because of this triple threat that we have with Jupiter and Chiron and Eris, all affecting this Mercury in peaceable Libra who just wants everyone to be okay and everything to be harmonious. But there's definitely the message here of if someone or something's not okay, then it's not okay. Glossing over things is not going to help the situation, but nor is being overly emotional or reactive. So there's a balance to walk here, and it's teaching you about how your big emotions are valid, are important, are useful, and also about how to work with them when you feel poked or triggered, or you feel like reacting to something that hurts. So this could be a potentially quite sensitive day of walking on eggshells if you're on the Mercury side of the equation, or it could be a rampaging, stormy kind of a time if you're on the Eros Chiron side. This could be a day too where you feel overly sensitive to everything if you're on the Jupiter end of the spectrum. So this does form a T-square. So there's definitely readjustments required in ways which are not particularly smooth or comfortable. The trick here is to fill in that blank side of the square, which in this case is Capricorn, okay, to help balance out these energies. So by maintaining your footing, remaining grounded, looking at things from a mature perspective, and also holding on to your own authority and integrity, we can help gain some insight into how to navigate this sticky scenario. Maturity is the key here with that missing square of Capricorn in the equation. We're also coming up to the second Chiron-Eris conjunction, which will happen a little bit later on the 9th of October. So it's interesting that we'll have this Jupiter in orb of squaring these two as they perfect for the second time. This is indicating that boo-boos and wounds and your sensitivities or past traumas are likely to feel a little more blown out of proportion than usual, and that you may also just be feeling them, Cancer, a lot more strongly about this around this time. So just be mindful of that too. Mercury will go on to enter Scorpio on the 7th of October, which is the day of the Aries full moon. More on that in a second. This is where the conversations deepen. This is where the mind wants to dive deep into the psyche, the complexes, the mystery, the secrets, to get to the deep, dark truth and to feel the power that the truth really holds. If you have Mercury in Scorpio, you know what I'm talking about. This is the investigative mind, the probing words, the profound conversations. This can also be about secretive communication, shadowy words, lies. Of course, Mercury switches on all of these outer planets again as he enters his new sign with a square to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, which, if you remember, is what I began with that Mars square to Pluto. So it's kind of reflecting what happened back then. And this is powerful words, okay? This is powerful words and potentially manipulation of some kind of directive or memo that may put you on the back foot. This Mercury square to Pluto is not on the screen. It's actually occurring on the 8th of October, just FYI. This could be very strongly around secrets and cover-ups, this square. This could be around grappling with the mind's need to know everything and be in control of everything to feel secure. This Pluto is ruling Mercury in Aquarius, so there is definitely a sense of coming up against things that you simply cannot either control or that you simply cannot attempt to probe to the bottom of and get a handle on. Mercury is also going to be sitting at the apex point of the yod that we previously had Mars on. We've got these two quincunxes to the Uranus-Saturn conjunction and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, broken record. This is about, with Mercury here, maybe feeling the need to go deeper in order to progress and move forward, and that maybe bringing these things up is something maybe that you'd rather not do, even though you kind of need to. So profound or confronting or powerful communication here is likely to be a source not only of creative potential in navigating this, but also inextricably a source of unease and even discordance. Keeping that in mind, the 7th and the 8th of October. So let's come to our full moon of Libra season, which is the full moon in Aries occurring on the 7th of October. Now, this is the first lunation in this newly reversed lunar cycle. If you remember me banging on about 2 Virgo new moons, the blue moons, you remember that the second new moon solar eclipse was the lunation, which sets our lunar cycle in reverse. So principally, we begin the sun season with the middle of the lunar cycle with the full moon. And we end the sun season with the beginning of the lunar cycle. So we've got the new moon occurring after the full moon, when usually the new moon is first. So this Aries full moon on the 7th of October is very fitting for this, as Aries is all about new starts, beginnings, initiations, what have you. And this is all happening at 14 degrees of Aries, and it's not making any Ptolemaic aspects, so no major connections to other planets and points. We have at best a bit of a shonky yod with the south node at one side of the base and Mars on the other, but those two, they're a little wide to be considered in sextile aspect. However, it's operational, it works, I'll allow it. But really, the moon in Aries is the star of the show, and she will be highlighting independence, autonomy, capability, and the courage and confidence of the potent self. I'm going to be making another podcast video for you on that lunation, so I won't go too far into it here. Let's leave it at that for now. Thank you so much again for being here with me. I hope you're enjoying lovely Libra season so far, and I'll be seeing you again in my next astrology video. So ciao for now.